is an SABC News presentation.
Sanibonani emakhaya nalapho nibukele khona lo hlelo Yilungelo Lakho, it's alright. We are coming to you live on SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Ligama lami ngiJonathan Lungu. Kanti later on kulelo hlelo lethu will open our studio lines so that you can also take part. That number is 011-714-6918 or 714-6919. Ungasithumela i-email ku consumer@sabc.co.za noma usivakashele ku Facebook page yethu lethi Yilungelo Lakho. Alternatively, ungasithumelela i-tweet ku @Yilungelo. Consumers can breathe a sigh of relief. The 3-week violent strike by truck drivers, which threatened food, fuel and other supply, is expected to come to an end. This is after the employer and the South African Transport and Allied Workers Union reached an agreement this morning. The industrial action was beginning to also threaten commuters as port and rail workers were expected to join in. The striking workers were demanding a 12% wage increase. Just less than an hour ago, the strikers reached an agreement.
Izingxoxo zangeviki edlule nabaqashi ziphele kungenasisombululo. SATAWU ehola abasebenzi embonini yamaloli ithi basematasa nezingxoxo.
If indeed we can't operate, we can't have food in the shops, we can't have petrol in garages, we can't have medicines sometimes transported, we can't have money in the ATMs, it therefore means we play an important role in the economy and therefore we must be properly compensated for that.
Kanti ke ibike nokuthi ibisize yajikela ku CCMA ukuyofuna usizo. Bekulindeleke ukuthi abasebenza ngaphezulu kwezinkulungwane ezingaphezulu kwama-20 abasebenza emtateni, abathulula imikhumbi kanye nabashayela amaguzu bangenelele kulesi siteleka. ISATAWU iyaphika ukuthi izimfuno zawo zamaphesenti angu-12 zizokhinyabeza imboni yezokuthutha. Ithi le mboni yenza izimali ezishisiwe unyaka nonyaka. Abamele abaqashi i-Road Freight Association isole izinyunyana ngungethembeki ezingxoxweni zamaholo.
The trade unions only represent 44% of the employees in the industry. Even from that 44%, it is not all employees that are participating in the strike.
Isitolo esithengisa ukudla iPick n Pay ithi noma izama idonsa nzima ngoba isitoko siyaphela emashelofini. Lesitolo senze konke okusemandleni ukuthi abathengi bengasokoli ngokuthengwayo. Abahlaziyi bezomnotho sebexwayise ukuthi lezi teleka zizokhinyabeza elomnotho kuleli. Lesiteleka sidume ngodlame. Angama-30 amaloli aseshisiwe. Abantu abangama-49 aseboshiwe. Amaphoyisa athi ababili babo amalunga eSATAWU. Inyana iyaphika lokho. Lezi teleka zalemboni yezokuthutha nezihlasela izimayini ziyasilimaza isithunzi sezwe. Abaningi sebekhumbise ukukhathazeka ngenxa yokuthi lezi teleka sezivame ukuhambisana nodlame. Job Sithole, Yilungelo Lakho.
And to further discuss the impact of the 3-week-long trucker strike on the lives of consumers and economy, let's welcome our studio guest. We are pleased to be joined here in the studio by Neran Rao Lovela Konaga, South African Chamber of Commerce and Industries. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Ganzlomunye lesinaye sina Vincent Masoha lo spokesperson noma lokhulumela South African Transport and Allied Workers Union SATAWU. Welcome, Vincent.
Thank you very much.
We have just received news that an agreement has been reached. Just take us through that.
Indeed, an agreement has been reached and then it has just been signed about an hour ago. This morning at the Bargaining Council for the Road Freight and Logistics Industry. It is a welcomed move on our part, and it is signed after a long and laborious process of an industrial action that was probably, yes, uncalled for or unnecessary, you can say. However, we had to embark on it on the basis of the inability by the employers or the bosses to move in terms of offering a meaningful wage offer to the workers.
Vincent, just break that down for us, because we say it's a 27% 3-year deal.
Yeah, look, in the first year, the workers are going to get a 10% wage increase, which is a much, much better improvement compared to what the employers were offering. So the 10% offer certainly is a double digit, which is what we have tried to make sure we push the employers to offer. And obviously the second year is 8% with another 0.25% that will be added on later on in the year. And then the third year is 9%. And of course the other allowances will also get an increase, such as overnight allowance, extra hours, danger allowances and cross-border allowances. And therefore we believe that that could begin to see an employee or a normal truck driver, a goods delivery driver earning a better wage, even though we are not fully happy because we would have expected the employers to meet the 12% demand.
Okay. Now, I think you have been the hardest hit.
Yes, many of our members have been impacted in direct and indirect ways. We do have members within this industry that are members of SACI across the country, operators of transport and freight movement companies. And we also have an indirect impact, which is on the broader base of our membership. And this is through the deprivation of a fundamental aspect of business infrastructure, that being transportation, impeding the movement of goods. In certain aspects, we've had, in certain parts of the country, rather, we've had illegal behavior that has caused access ways, roadways to be blocked, and this has further impacted the movement of freight.
Okay, we'll come to the impact itself. Is this a sign of relief, the agreement?
Well, we're definitely happy that the strike is at an end. We were deeply concerned that as we enter into week 4 and week 5, what the consequences of the strike would be for our broader economy. We're also heading towards the festive season now, and for the trade sector, the retail sector in particular, this is a key period. We need to see goods move efficiently. We've already received indications that deliveries are down, new orders are down, sales levels are down. So there is a broad-based impact already. But it's not too late to overcome that impact and still gear up for a prosperous festive season. Naturally, the delivery companies now need to ensure that they can support this 10% increase that has been agreed upon today. And over the coming weeks, we will monitor our membership, particularly on the small and medium side, to ensure that those businesses are able to sustain themselves and to continue to provide an effective service in terms of the movement of goods.
But was the situation becoming worse?
Definitely so, especially if one had found that the threats of expanding the strike to ports and rail became a reality. We would be deeply concerned. That would pretty much pull the rug out from under business right now. The economy would come very close to being on its knees. There would be substantial consequences for many businesses across the spectrum, small, medium, and large, because while you can negotiate with your domestic counterparts in terms of their understanding that you're experiencing strike circumstances and you can't deliver on time, international counterparts would be less sympathetic. So when you impede the movement of goods out of our ports, you then risk liability in terms of trade partners abroad. There's a reputational risk for South Africa. There's a reputational risk for countries and industries operating in South Africa.
But how are your members responding to the situation?
Well, we haven't had feedback yet on the agreement.
Before the agreement. I mean, the whole situation, 3 weeks without any supplies.
Well, initially, you dip into inventories, and some of the larger transport companies had contingency plans in place. So it was still possible in week 1 and part of week 2 to keep business going. But as you entered the latter portion of week 2 and as you entered week 3, you then started to see contingency plans wear down. You then started to see inventories wear down. And in inverted commas, I want to refer to the upside of the economic circumstances we find ourselves in. Because economic activity was low, inventories were fairly high. So businesses were capacitated to continue functioning. Naturally, there were certain immediate and direct impacts on the perishable side. When your business depended on perishable goods or traded in perishable goods, the impact on your business was almost immediate, within days, that you were deprived of stock and your business was consequently impacted. But if you look at other types of goods, we see that businesses were finding ways and means to continue operating, not at optimal level, but at some sort of trade activity. We also found in our last trade survey, which we released a few days ago, that inventories hadn't dipped as low as we'd initially thought. Business seemed to be fairly resilient in the face of this challenge, but we expected that in the next trade survey there would be a more dire reflection of the impact. Okay. The other concern we had was that businesses were building inventories for the future. They committed to longer-term contracts in terms of inventories, and that is an abnormal circumstance. They were looking to maintain higher levels than they ordinarily would because of fears. And you don't want that to happen because that's a cost on business. They would then pass that cost on to the consumer. Okay.
Vincent, were you concerned when the strike entered maybe into its first week?
The first
or taking
week?
Longer?
No. When it entered into the third week, which is this week, look, we were soldiering on. Our members were soldiering on. They were prepared to continue the fight. They were prepared to ensure that with their discipline and willingness to abide by the law, but continue to ensure that certainly they have to press and push to hit the employer where to hit the employer where it hurts most, which is on their profits. Then the employer will ultimately respond.
But didn't that have an impact on the employees?
Of course, the members understand that. Unfortunately, the members' only tool they have is labor power. They have the power to withdraw their labor when the employer is not willing to engage with them. And in this case, the employer understood, the employees, which is our members, the workers, also understand very well that once they withdraw their labor power, of course, there's a certain element of compromise, which is that they will then have to forfeit some wages for those weeks that they were not there. But if it is in the interest of a larger majority of everybody, but also the interest of gaining a better wage, which will improve the situation irrespective of the sacrifices they made for the first 3 weeks of this industrial action, it is highly welcomed. The 10% will certainly give them a better, meaningful wage.
But after the strike, do you, as a union, sit down and then take notes or take note of what happened? Because this took too long.
Of course we do. We take note of what happened. Clearly, it means, it's not, you cannot blame the union for the strike to have taken longer. It means that the union would have taken the members to strike for nothing. We have to make the strike effective. If it means it takes long so that it can be effective, it's fine. But if you go on a strike for a week or 2 weeks, and then you say, okay, it's taking long, let's go back to work, and you didn't get anything, why did you have to go to strike?
Okay, all right. I think we have to hold it there. For now, sithi kuvakashele tolo ukhumbula ukuthi uma ufuna ukuvadisa luvo lwakho ngalodzaba lolumhla wasivakashela ku Facebook page yethu lethi Yilungelo Lakho, noma uthumele i-tweet ku@Yilungelo, noma ushayele ucingo ku 011 794 6918 or 19. Please join us after this. Spinze sinabukele babukele usabukele hlelo lwakho lolukwathisa ngamalungelo akho Yilungelo Lakho. It's your right. We are still talking about the ongoing trackers. Anyway, the strike is over now, as we have said earlier on. But anyway, we are looking at the impact on the lives of the consumers, as well as the movement of goods and services on the general economy. But to take part, you can call us on 011-714-6918 or 19. You can also send an SMS by texting the word right to 33726. Alternatively, send us an email to consumer@sabc.co.za. Noma sivakashele ku Facebook page yethu lethi Yilungelo, noma i-tweet ku@Yilungelo. Vincent, we have seen the strike, it's over now, but it was violent in some other cases. Why so?
Yeah, well, we have heard about cases and incidents of violence, and we have condemned them to the strongest possible terms. And certainly we are even prepared that should there be evidence available, and of course out of our own investigations, should we discover and uncover the fact that some of our members were involved in those activities, they will have to face the disciplinary processes within the organization. And certainly that means that we may have to also comply and cooperate with the law enforcement agencies so as to ensure that such criminal activities are reported. Because certainly our right to strike, which is enshrined in our constitution, is not necessarily also a right of individuals or criminals or thugs for that matter to tend to want to utilize our strike to pursue criminal activities. We have seen, and I think even the police in Ekurhuleni have attested to it, that those barbaric acts, when they were highly criminal, they were nothing to do with the strike. Some elements were attempting to hijack our strike, such that they can then try to portray the name of SATAWU as an organization that is mired with violence or associated with violence and some kind of a militancy that is unguided. We are guided, we have guided militancy as an organization. We are a disciplined organization. We have our own internal processes. And if you looked at all the gatherings that we had, except for one day wherein there were many people, some of them were not identifiable. There were incidents that were even captured on national television. And we have condemned that, and certainly those people that were there, we have to ensure that they get reported to. And they were not our members. And we are still insisting that should there be our member that is found, he will face criminal activity. The South African public has a right to go on with their lives irrespective of our rights that we are exercising where we are gathering.
Okay. Beyond condemning their actions, the violent actions, what is it that you are planning to do to prevent this from happening in the future?
Look, we even had to take an undertaking after the employers attempted to interdict us using this issue of violence as an excuse through the labor court. That look, because we all agree that violence are a total unnecessary, that is an evil thing that must be dismissed within our structures in society as a whole. We took an undertaking that we will ensure that our strike is consistent of strike committees. Shop stewards will be available on a full-time basis. There will be coordinator at all locals, at all gathering points, and even from the factories themselves where the members are living, when they go towards a gathering for a match,
okay.
They are coordinated.
Okay, can you please hold that thought? We take our first caller, Tsotesi from Thokoza. Tsotesi siyakwamukela kule hlelo lethu.
Akumbingelele nonke basonthweni bami lapho lana khona.
Siyakuzwa baba.
Ngithi ngibonga kakhulu nje istrike masesiphelile. Kodwa khona ngizibuhlungu manje masengizwile emntanami ukuthi kanti abantu laba behola imali encane ngako bangafika ku-2000 abantu basebenza Monday to Friday ebusuku nasemini bathola imali yabantu bamafosholo. Le nto bayezilele cha bengithi ngiyabanyisona kodwa bayize kahle ngiyabonga.
Okay.
Ngoba amalori abulala mntaba ngibuya khona nyazi. Mina bengicabanga ukuthi abantu bathola bo 8000 bo 12000 kanti bathola 1000. Ngiyabonga sethi ngiyabonga.
Okay ba. All right Baba Tsotesi, thanks so much. The employers Baba Tsotesi is commending the agreement that it has been signed, but he is also concerned that these people were getting so much little, about 2,000 rand per month. He thought maybe they are getting at around 8,000 or 12,000.
We certainly have enormous challenges in many sectors of our economy in terms of getting our workers to a livable wage. And this is not an issue that the Chamber takes lightly either. We support our members in trying to get our workers to a livable wage, to bridge the inequality gaps in our society. And many of the strike activities we see are as a consequence of this massive inequality we're still dealing with. The only point that the Chamber wants to table is that these inequalities emerged over decades and decades, and we are now trying to overcome them in a very short period of time. It's not to say that we don't want to, we would want to rid the economy of inequalities overnight if we could, but the current economic circumstances limit the capacity to do so. If we were in better economic times, I think business would be a lot more receptive to the wage demands that are being tabled, and we would not have the level of strike activity we're currently experiencing. But we are living in very constrained economic times, and until we get over this hurdle, we've got to focus on keeping the doors open in enterprises, we've got to focus on retaining the jobs that we have, and perhaps in the near future, or not too distant future, we could then focus on job creation. But right now, the challenge is how do we minimize the numbers of jobs that are lost.
Okay, all right. Let's take Jameson from Soweto before we come back to you. Jameson, welcome to Yilungelo Lakho.
Yebo, sanibonani futhi.
Yes, siyakwamukela ba.
Yebo. Ngumbono la ukuthi ama-union ala South Africa sesifike isikhathi sibona izitreka ezidlula nemphefumulo yabantu. Kungani bangabi ney'nhlelo zama-short steward okanye ama-marshals yabo kuyo yonke indawo la kukhona ama-members yabo abastrikile ukuthi kube nabantu abahlelayo ukuthi makungabi nemphefumulo edlulayo, kungabi nemonakalo eyenzekayo ngoba lokho kusibuyisela emuva and kunemindeni esala kudengwani emva kwale shona kwalabo abantu esuke behlukumeziwe baze babulawa ngoba nakho bengekho istrekile. Ilo nto umbono unawo ukuthi ama-union azama ukuhlela ngoba sesithi kakhulu lesikhathi sihamba kule nkululeko kodwa izitrekha zethu zidlula nemphefumulo ngaso sonke isikhathi. Lokho enginakho, ngiyabona.
Okay, thank you so much, Jameson. I think that comes to you, Babu Masokha. Jameson is concerned, or idea lekanayo ukuthi ama-unions abe cishe nema programs lathile for shop steward as well as their members to avert violent strikes as well as losing lives.
Oh, of course, yes. I think we do have such programs. If you looked at our previous march in the CBD in Johannesburg, when we went to hand over the memorandum of demands at the bargaining council, we had marshals all over. Our members were disciplined. All the gatherers, all the people that came from all over were well disciplined. They were careful as well, and it was well coordinated. The same march that happened yesterday at the Road Freight Employers Association offices, as well as one of the member companies, the DHL. There was discipline, there was lawfulness, there was peace. However, what is the challenge is that we have noticed that there are always attempts to seek to hijack our focus and, of course, capitalize on the angry emotions that could be expressed at that point in time.
It's not for the first time Nibaguma strikes and then other violent. And then, hence we are saying you have had these programs in place. But have they been effective? Because lives have been lost not for the first time.
Yep, okwamanje amalungu wethu lawa bekayenza yonke le march, none of them were involved in activities of violence. Lama cases wengawo manje, they've happened in isolated areas that our members were not present there. You would just hear a sporadic call wherein they say a truck is burning or a driver has been hurt, and of course we are worried about those activities.
Are they using your colors as members?
None of them are even found to be wearing our t-shirts or anything. But yes, they are using our name because then they want to then shift the entire blame into the union. You know, the union has got serious issues. We have got over 170,000 members that we must make sure that we look after in terms of their daily bread and butter issues, and other members of the industry that we negotiate on their behalf, even if they are not necessarily members of SATAWU. And we are a responsible organization. We want to contribute towards the thriving of our own democracy. We can't then want to take away the rights of other people.
But, okay, all right. I think when we come back, we'll be looking at the rights of the public or non-striking members. Assisi Kupinza Sigetolo, please join us after this ad break. Welcome back. Awukalahleki imbukeli usabukele lona lihlelo Yilungelo Lakho. It's right. Kanti lo hlelo lokuthi ngithatha indzaba lethi indzaba thengi yebo likhuluma ngemalungelo kepha libuke ubudlelwane kumthengi nemthengisi. Uma ngithi umthengi nemthengisi ngisho an institution or a provider or a person offering a certain service. We continue with our discussion on the impact of ongoing truckers. Mhlambe le strike lebes corner anyway. Let's say satsinza timpilo tebantu. To take part, please call us on 011-794-6919 or 6918. You can also send us an SMS. Uthumele gama lelithi right ku 33726 noma uthumele email ku consumer@sabc.co.za. Alternatively, send or visit us on our Facebook page ku Yilungelo Lakho or send a tweet ku @Yilungelo. Kepha ngembi kokuthi siqhubeke ngitawufunza mhlambe some of the Facebook postings lesi sawathola. Kuna Fabio Cannavaro uthi kuyilungelo labasebenzi ukuthi bathole le mali labayifunayo ngoba yibo abasebenza ngamatima from Fabio Cannavaro eNkomazi eMpumalanga. Kanti lo moya sinayo inkosi nathi Sayinda Mkhize kunokuqhaphaza kubantu abamnyama leli bhova elu lilibele ukudla izimali. And then baqashe abafunze kubambisana nama-union, otherwise sitathola esimeni lesimatima emzansi ngaleti nkinga leti khungethe lelive lethu phansi ngetiteleka phansi phambili nge-increment. And then lo munye lesimtholako la ngubabsi Mathabela uthi ke yena siyabona kuphela kwe-strike SATAWU kodwa manje sekusasele thina bathengi ngale ndlela kudla kunyuke ngayo kumatima shem. That's what he's saying. And then Msibi, South Africa is busy, Msibi Ngobile. South Africa is busy applying for the depression. Why people, special owners of the companies, bring a right agreement on the table? I think we wanted to say, why are they not bringing the right agreement on the table? I blame them because at the end of the strike, they give the money. So that's what we discussed earlier on, that why does it take so long? I think that's the concern from the person who sent this email. We've got Anonymous from Soweto. Welcome to Yilungelo Lakho. Siyapila.
I want to pose a question about SATAWU.
Yeah, Vincent.
Yeah, uthi ama members abo are not violent. The first incident, yomuntu a truck, it was making a truck, but we little van. In city center, wakuma ihamba. Yaze ukwange iphusa wayibreaker. Those members, bokama members are. Is he saying because bengasalanga ama-red said akusama members abo na?
Okay, ufuna kuphendule ulalele manje.
Ngizomamela e-TV.
Okay, thanks so much. That's Anonymous from Soweto. Narin, briefly, there was an incident inside in the city center where a truck, it's a small truck, the driver managed to escape unharmed because some of the strikers were attacking the truck, and then he managed to get out of the truck while it was in motion, and a police managed to get hold of the truck so that he can prevent it from damaging other properties. And then she is asking that those members, were they not members of SATAWU? That is directed to you, Vincent.
Yes. In fact, our members came there in numbers, but they were not only our members. Let's start there. Let's clarify that. Remember that much as SATAWU is the leading union with over 28,000 members in the sector, therefore being a majority union in the bargaining council, there are other 3 unions that were part of the march that similar day, and that were part of the strike throughout. But over and above that, there were individuals that were there. Some of them are not necessarily belonging to the unions at all, but they are workers. Others are just community activists. Others are just sympathizers. Others cannot be accounted for at all. And we tried by all means to verify as to who were those particular individuals that were responsible for that. And we did, in fact, find that they are not our members. Not only on the basis good nyamuza anonymous lenta ikhuluma ukuthi beba ngoba bagqoka ama t-shirts red therefore ukuthi akusama member wethu no thina siyenzile ne verification besinama sector coordinators bewakhona lapha ngalesa sikhathi bachekile ukuthi obani labantu laba akusamalungu wethu kodwa sikhulumile nawo
But aren't you trying to maybe to run away with Medea? Because these people, they're amongst you. And what you are saying now is that they are not your members. How do you know that they are not your members while the others as well, they are not wearing T-shirts?
Well, like I'm saying, angisebenzisi lento ukuthi bebagcoke or bebagcoka ama T-shirt kodwa mangabe ukuthi sibheka lento ukuthi siyenza i-verification yokuthi laba abantu obani baphilonga kuphi thina sitholanga idatha ukuthi labantu bakithi and abantu bakithi abasebenza amalungu wethu eSATAWU by all means were always moving with their shop stewards, with the marshals, shop stewards assigned from where they come from and so forth. And we have not in any way lost control of our members. And then as we sympathize with fellow South Africans. We take the issue of violence very seriously. Hence the city, Tina, we are even conducting our own investigation. Last year, somebody belonging to our organization was even attempting to get involved into such activities. Lawyer Montuzo Uzo Yagu DC. Over manje Tina, Lavantaba incident in the CBD. They were not our members.
But are you trying to help the law enforcement with that?
Oh, most definitely we are available.
Okay, all right. Let's take Kosabo from Tshwane. Kosabo, welcome to Yilungelo Lakho.
Yebo sawona bhuti omkhulu.
Yebo bhuti.
Ninjani yaphezulu?
Siphilile bhuti sikulalela.
Ngithi mina kulo baba lo uNdiya.
Unarini igama lakhe baba?
Oh, okay. Yebo ngixolise kulo. Ngithi kule ndaba yokustrike kungani kungathi uma ngabe ukukhulunyiswana singabasebenzi nami ngomshayeli wetrust. Kubani uma ngabe sicela imali bangakwazi ukuthi basilalele ekuqaleni kungakafika isikhathi kuze kufike la kuyo strike khona. Ngoba sineni kwe-strike kugcina sebavumelana nathi and sebonakele isikhathi eside sezinto ezingakalungi. Umbuzo wami uthi ngoba phela le mali esiyo yabo 2,500 kunzima mntanami ngisuka la ngesathi ngikayisho ngishone ePilasberg noma ngishone eDurban lapho impilo yami ngilale esigangeni ezinye azama-break service azinayo nginikele ngempilo yami kodwa ekugcineni iy'ngane zami ziyahluphe azikwazi ngisho ukudla kodwa ngisemsebenzini mihla le.
Okay. All right. No, but Kosabo Smoakulu from Tshwane, that was Kosabo from Tshwane. The question is directed to you, Narin, that why are the employers not putting the right offer on the table? Immediately the unions come with a certain offer to say, we are offering this, that's why we stop. Why are you not negotiating in good faith?
I think the employers are negotiating in good faith. It's just that they are diametrically opposed. Business and labor are never going to see eye to eye on wage offers. If you look at the current request, at the outset it was 12%. It's more than twice the current inflation level, which is usually the basis that we measure various cost increases, not just labor costs, but all costs. We factor in inflation. So naturally, the business person wants to protect his business. He wants to manage the costs so that he can generate greater levels of profits, which he will then hopefully use to expand the business and employ more people. Also, one has to look at labor budgets, human resource budgets, as being fixed, a fixed commitment for a year. So if you increase the per capita expense within that budget, the consequence down the line has to be that fewer people can be employed. So the business person in many instances is inspired by a desire to keep as many people employed as possible, hopefully to also grow employment within that enterprise. We are encouraging our members to do this, for the private sector broadly to play a stronger role in creating employment in South Africa. And unfortunately, when the wage demands go up, it's more difficult to do that.
But when the employer sits down and they do his budget, maybe his budgeting, is he not maybe bringing on board the representatives of the employers to say, here is my budget, here is the things will stand this way for the whole financial year? Why can't it be like that?
Well, that is something that some employers may wish to do, but generally speaking, it's about crunching the numbers and seeing what's feasible. You know that a certain level of revenue is coming in. You know that you have certain costs. Labor is not the only cost you have. And you then have to determine, how do you keep this business buoyant during that period of time within those constraints. So it is a very difficult exercise. I would encourage members to bring labor representatives in where they can, but that's not always possible. And then you may have the strike occurring a lot earlier in the year than you expect, because they strike immediately the budget is released. And it's not just the private sector that suffers this challenge. This is the same challenge that is suffered in the public sector. The Minister of Finance has to determine the budget in February, but negotiations around municipal workers' compensation occurs later in the year. So then the Minister of Finance has to relook at the budget depending on what the demands are and try to make ends meet. And that's the same thing that happens on a micro level within individual enterprises.
Okay, all right, let's hold it there. For now, let's take another ad break. Sisabuya nalo Zabaletfu, please join us after this ad break. Welcome back. Sisaqhubeka nalo hlelo lwethu lapho sikhuluma khona ngesiteleka sebantu labashayela mhlambe ama-truck noma emaloli njengoba besikhona sibanjwe emaviki lamathathu. Sibuka ukuthi wena mthengi siye sakuthinza njani empilweni, siye sakuthinza njani mhlambe esikhwameni sakho njengoba noma ngubani uye watibonela ukuthi ipetrol beyingekho kuletinye titeshi kudla kuletinye titolo kuletinye indzawo bekungekho. Lokho ngilokho sikubuka kakhulu kulehlelo lethu ukuthi mhlambe etinyonyana kanye nebaqashi bangakuvikela njani lokho esikhatsini lesitawu. Now we are looking at the rights of the public non-striking members. Babu Vincent, bantu labangafuni ku-strike, let's take their employees, they don't want to strike. Banawo malungelo yini?
They have rights. Every citizen has rights of association or not association for that matter. And then to siyenzile thina ukuthi sithumele nje notice kuwo amalungu ukuthi sizawuphuma i-strike, sizawuba khona, siyaba encourage bonke ukuthi basijoyine ukuthi mase sibaningi kakhulu siyenza i-mass power sizokwazi ukuthi sibe more effective and isipleka siyakwazi ukuthi siphele masinya ngoba abaqashi bazozwa phela le pain ukuthi hayi mangabe uthi bonke abasebenzi baphumile hayi ne. That I think even a week will be too long. However, we are also saying that mangabe ukuthi umuntu uyachoose not to go on strike, it is their right. The only thing we can do is to encourage them to continue to join the strike or pickets or go on a go slope, but not necessarily to force them to join the strike.
But these intimidations that we have seen, I believe it's from some of your members.
Now it is exactly against those kind of acts. Intimidating other fellow workers that are on strike is not helping. In fact, it is more good to imagine abasebenzi bayashayana bona ngokwabo, and then when workers attack each other, it is not helpful. We continue to encourage our members, anybody else, other workers that were on strike but that are not our members, or other workers that are not. I mean, we even had people we interacted with that parked their trucks here in Johannesburg that came from Durban, from Cape Town and so forth, that are not members of the unions, but they felt that our cause was genuine enough that they must join it. And that is how we expect to see it, because if they start hitting each other, we are going to lose the focus from focus agumkash, says focus on way too much, and then that becomes an internal squabble, and it does not help. It just weakens the labor power. So we continue to say, and platforms in general was provided, sayabonga Jonathan, is that siyakwazi ukukhuluma namalungu wethu out there and sithi ke siyacela kusasa mangabe ukuthi kunesinye strike, just talk to your members, coordinate properly, speak to them properly, and make sure that they all go out willingly, not ukuthi bayafosterish ukuthi baphume ngoba makunjalo we will be breaking their rights.
And then let's now look at liability. If mhlambe kube khona ama damages, like we have seen some of the trucks were banned, but anyway we have said it's not our members who did that, but whose liability is it?
Well, we think that the individuals, the criminals that have done such must be accountable, and we also understand khona into bengifuna ukuyisho lana unirende yakhuluma ngayo yama small businesses. I think that is part and parcel of economic development and efforts by government and even the private sector to, I don't know what extent, to ensure that they develop or they transform the economy, and that the majority people in this country, which are the previously disadvantaged individuals, black people in particular, women in majority as well, are beginning to also have their own smaller businesses, where you find that umuntu useloksheni une-truck lakhe uyasideliverish izinto zakhe, and he got a small contract to supply at a retail store in ezinjalo, or to supply a pharmacy or a farm. Those people are self-employed, and we have no rights to then attack such people, much as they might be earning the same small salaries, because ama business amancane khona amanye ama-company adelivera ama-beverages. They've done ama owner driver initiatives wherein owner drivers are in charge. We respect those people. We wish to see them growing. We wish to see them participating towards creating more jobs where they are.
Okay, let's get the view from Betwell Mpumalanga. Betwell, welcome to Yilungelo Lakho, sakwamukela.
Ngiyaphila njani ba?
Siphilile Betwell.
Ngicela ukubuza kulabo babili bamasofa noNareni ukuthi ma abasebenzi betelekile. Okay, kunalabo ukuthi abanelungelo ukuthi bangadeleki. Kodwa uma sesiwinile mhlawumbe njengalabo sebawinile lo percent abawinile, nalabo bayithola na labo bengadelekanga. And okwesibili, labo bantu abazikhulisa i-union ayizikhula ngeke benamandla obazothi noma ngateleka thina sizohlala soyithola into abayitholayo.
Okay.
Ngiyabonga.
All right. Betwell from Mpumalanga. Your view on?
Yeah, no, we share the views le comrade Betwell. Ukuthi kahle mangabe ukuthi vele siyavumelana njenge-union ukuthi siyahamba sonke siyale, and abanye abantu abahambi njengathi. Sometimes it tends to weaken the union, and abacashi bayasebenzisa yona lento leyo. Sebayasho njengoba uzwile abanye bebasho ukuthi hayi ngathi SATAWU iyahluleka ucontrolisha strike, or iyahluleka ukuthola lezi zinto befuna ukuzithola ngale strike le. But certainly I think we have made it, we were effective in this industrial action. We are just encouraging them, because it will be wrong to force them. But if they want to belong to the union as well, but they don't want to participate in a strike, we respect that. I think that just this small point, in most cases, sometimes they think that if strikes is over violent, then that's why they fear to go there. We just need to educate them more to say they can participate in the strike, is protected by the law. Even the employers cannot victimize them.
Okay. I'll come to that one of wildcat strikes or unprotected strikes. But let me bring you in, Naren. Naren, are the employers not using maybe that loophole that here is a certain number of employees who are not part of the unions, and then they bargain on that to say we are offering this kind of wage or salary?
There are always elements within the business community that may try to test the limits, perhaps they're in difficult circumstances, they're going to do whatever they can to protect their businesses. But I don't believe that those types of activities are widespread. I believe it's a minority that tend to do that, and some of even that minority is motivated by a desire to keep the business operational. I'm very heartened to hear a lot of what Vincent said around the plight of SMEs, and that we need to respect that, their role and their contribution to the economy. Certainly during this strike, we've had reports of even non-striking workers or people who are not workers at all, perhaps in some areas frustrated, unemployed, who have been embarking on acts of violence. And we have suggested that as soon as violence enters, whether it's the striking workers or the non-striking workers, government needs to mobilize the security forces. We cannot be seen for any of our sakes as a country that entertains violence. We cannot be seen as a country that entertains intimidation. So we've called on government to embark on the strongest possible response where that exists. That is key to protection of property rights and the furthering of business activity in South Africa.
Thank you on that point. Aspintes Vashel Tolo, please stay with us. We'll be back. Welcome back. Sisaqhubeka nenkulumo yethu ngale siteleka lebesikhona setekuthuza. Ingabe siukhenya betenjani umnotho wakulelive nemkhicito futhi kanti kuqhubeka kwaso kungasho ukuthini mhlambe esikhathini lesitako mhlambe uma kwendeka ukuthi iteleka lethu fana leti Yavela Foods. Naren, you wanted to make a point on the rights of non-striking employees.
The Chamber fully respects the right to strike. Although we believe that in South Africa sometimes we embark on strikes too frequently and too soon in the negotiating process, we still respect that right. And we also call upon citizens where they have been harmed to become activists and to support the unions and or the police authorities or anyone else that's out there, even the local chamber, in terms of dealing with those who have behaved inappropriately. We need our citizens to take action. That driver that was harmed in Johannesburg or threatened with harm, we need him to come to the fore and try to find the guys that behaved improperly and support the prosecution of those individuals. And in that, if we have that kind of activism from our consumers, we would then have a more balanced labor environment, we would have a more amicable one. The state president was at our annual convention last week, and he echoed the sentiment that business and labor need to learn to work together. We need to invest more strongly in the established negotiating mechanisms. We've invested substantially as a nation in mechanisms such as NEDLAC, institutions such as NEDLAC. We are seen globally as a model for social dialogue. So let's give that a chance, and I'm speaking about both business and labor now. Let's give those established mechanisms an opportunity to work before we start antagonizing each other and stimulating this type of improper behavior. And that is the plea from the chamber.
Another strike is envisaged sooner. The Municipal Workers Union might go on strike. Are your members ready? Were they anticipating such things?
Well, until the reports came about, we didn't anticipate that. We would be deeply concerned about such a strike. And next to the transport workers' strike, that would have a broad-based impact on the economy. The other concern that relates to a municipal workers' strike is that we were already operating off a low base. Our members in many parts of the country are reporting very unpleasant experiences in terms of the business environment. A failure of electricity supply, failures of sanitation and water delivery, all of that's impacting those businesses. Now, if you look at a circumstance where business can already not find suitable infrastructure to operate, and then you compound that with a strike or some sort of protest activity by the municipal workers, you're going to create a business environment that's impossible to operate in. People are going to start closing their doors, looking for alternatives. And when they don't find those alternatives domestically, they're going to be looking abroad. We cannot afford to lose more businesses. For business's sake or for labor's sake or for government's sake, we need to support our business enterprises. So if the municipal workers do decide to enter into a negotiating process, my plea is that they sit around the table for as long as they can to negotiate before taking to the streets, before impacting the communities in which they operate in. Let's give due process due time to succeed.
Vincent, Naren raised another point here. He said some of the strikes, they become too soon before the negotiation process. Why so? Just briefly.
Yeah, well, that could be when there is lack of evidence or whatsoever that shows that there are preparations, particularly from the side of the employers, that the employers prepared to at least understand. If there's no movement at all, that creates a lot of problems, because then you know that the relationship is not there, the relationship of trust has deteriorated. But what we can say is that with us, we started the negotiations in June already this year. So it's been a 5-month the process of negotiations and offers and counter offers, rejections, talks breaking down, and the parties walking away from each other up until we declared a strike.
But anyway, now we have reached an agreement. What does it say? Does it mean that we'll not see any more strike for the coming 2 years?
On our members, particularly in the road freight, certainly they are not prepared. Remember that there are conditions there that should the inflation exceed the expectations as per that particular agreement, parties have rights to reopen the negotiations. So we cannot guarantee anything. Even the economy itself is not guaranteeing that it's going to remain like this forever. He was just saying that the economy might do very badly in the future because of all these other increases and challenges. So if the economy does very badly, it might compel parties to reopen negotiations on behalf of workers.
Okay, I think we have to leave it there. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming, and I think without you, we have got no show. But anyway, for now, we have come to the end of today's show. Sitsanze kubonga ati vashitetu Naren kanda Vincent Yilungelo Lakho Kanti siphinde sibonge nani babukeli ngokuba nathi kuthi made kube ngesikhathi. Please join us again next Friday for another live consumer topic of the week from 1:30 to 2:30 Nzambama. Nanifuna imbinza yalehlelo lethu Yilungelo Lakho, ungavulela amabonakuthe wakho njalo ngemsombuluko ku SABC 1 kusukela 9:30 kuya ku 10:30. We also have other means to keep in touch with you. Kindly email your thoughts about this program to consumer@sabc.co.za or send us a fax to 011746420 or visit our Facebook page yetu Yilungelo or follow us on Twitter @Yilungelo. From me, Jonathan Lungu, and the entire team, nibe nesikhathi lesimnanzi nisale kahle.
Lakho mnganwa awungelakho mnganwa oma yaqeda impolompo awungelakho mnganwa.